Welcome back to the Windy City Podcast. I'm your host, Carter, and today we got something special planned, so please stay tuned. The first game I want to cover is a loss, unfortunately. The Bulls lose to the Raptors 104-98. Vooch had 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. LaVine had 17 points. So, if you know anything about how I feel regarding Vooch, the first thing I'm going to point out is his rebounding. As a center in the NBA, nonetheless a center of his status, I feel that we need 12 rebounds from him. As a team, we were out-rebounded 47-35. And on the offensive side, we were out-rebounded 19-6. Plain and simple, we can't allow 19 offensive rebounds. We were also outshot 94-71. And luckily, the Raptors suck just as bad as we do, so we didn't get blown out. But either way you look at it, we still lost. I think this game really just came down to the fact that we weren't aggressive enough on offense or on rebounding. So I feel like we have the assets to be a very dangerous offensive team, but we don't play aggressive enough and we don't make enough shots for this to go through. When Vooch was asked about this game specifically, he said that we didn't do a good enough job in boxing them out and grabbing the ball, and a few of them were 50-50. And I might not agree so much on the 50-50 part, but I still agree with what he said. We were not aggressive enough on the glass. The next thing I'm going to cover is the Bulls beat the Pistons. We won this game 117-115. Zach had 41 points. DeRozan had 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists. Pat Bev almost had a triple-double with 5 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 4 steals. And even though we won, this is still kind of the same story. The Bulls were up by at least 15 points for the first 3 quarters, and then we magically let them bring the game within 2 points. When DeMar was asked about this, he said, "We have to show a sense of urgency coming out at halftime, especially when we have a lead. Teams are not going to lay down and just let us win. They're going to come out swinging as well." And to be honest with that, I do agree. One of the main issues I have with this team is our lack of aggression on offense and defense. We don't really play as well as we should. And that's why I'm kind of hoping Pat Bev will help us do this. For this next game, my friend Bryson Miller will be joining me. How are you doing, Bryce?
Good. What's going on, Carter?
Okay, so before we get into the Suns game, I have a couple questions. Who or what got you into basketball?
So back probably, I'd say 9th grade, I started going and playing pickup with my friends from middle school, and I was kind of terrible. I was definitely the worst one on the team, and I don't know. I just wanted to kind of carry my own weight. So when quarantine came around, I didn't really have anything to do. I'd just go outside, pick up a ball, start dribbling, and I practiced a little bit before then, but I'd say that's when my kind of love for the game and practicing really grew from there.
Yeah. What is your favorite thing about basketball?
Favorite thing about basketball, I'd say 2 things. I really like the culture, which is kind of an interesting answer, but I just love going to high school games and seeing the energy around there. I love going to like EYBL, Peace Jam, stuff like that. And just, driving around the neighborhood and seeing courts full, that's just brings some more feeling to my heart,
Yeah.
Hate seeing courts empty. And then I also like, too, how basketball your game kind of, like, says a little bit about you, like how you play. So it's kind of a
what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah. And it's kind of a way of, like, portraying yourself, like, through a game, just how, like, artists would do so, painting a picture, writing a song, something like that.
All right. What is your favorite NBA moment of all time?
That's a good question, because I've never actually sat down and thought about what my favorite moment of all time is. I definitely have a few favorites. I'd say Cam Johnson's probably his Cam Johnson's game winner against the Knicks, because I was with all my friends. We were watching that, and I called that in the first quarter. Granted, I called that like every game, but that time I really meant it. Either that, also his dunk in the finals, because that's kind of when I started really liking him. Cam Johnson aside, I liked that one Pacers Paul George clip where he he kind of pulls up from half court and shoots it in that playoff game. I thought that was
Yeah.
crazy. That, and then I know I'm definitely missing some, but then anything announced by the Hornets announcer is great.
Who is your favorite active player?
Favorite active player, Cam Johnson. Got his jersey on the wall. I hate that he had to get traded, but he's doing great on the Nets right now, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It, who's that one guy for the Nets that has like, I dropped like 240 bombs before the trade happened? That one,
Cam
like,
Thomas, the other
it's not
Cam.
him, is it?
Yeah,
Because I'm like, Cam's not familiar, but I'm also like, don't know anything about the Nets or
yeah,
some
different
shit.
Cam.
But yeah, want to give a little introduction for the audience. So we're gonna get into it, and this pains me to say this, but Bulls lose to the Suns, 125 to 104. DeMar had 31 points on a very efficient night of 13 for 8, and Zach had 27. For the Suns, Devin Booker had 35 points. Chris Paul had 11 points and 10 assists. Josh Okogie had 25 points, and Kevin Durant had 20 points and 9 rebounds. We watched it. It was my dad's birthday, actually, and he's like, "Hey, I got the game on. Want to come watch it?" I'm like, "Sure." And we were watching like the fourth quarter, and like when we had a chance to kind of put ourselves back in it, and then we let Devin Booker open, and he hit a three, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to the shower, Dad. I'm not watching this anymore." But this game was pretty much like DeMar versus Booker, which I kind of liked because they're both attacking each other, and I kind of like how they both like aren't afraid to like post up from like the mid range area and fade on you
Oh,
and
yeah,
whatnot. I thought that's pretty cool, and they had that little back to back sequence. I mean, as a viewer, it's cool, but as a fan, it's not cool seeing that we can't get stops. And then, I mean, I don't know if you noticed this, but we let Booker get a lot of open looks, and like especially from three. And there was one play where we doubled Kevin Durant on the wing, and that kind of made like
yeah.
no sense to me at all.
That's just part of having KD now on the team. Is everyone else is going to get so many more open looks? I'm sure you noticed that with Aiden too.
Yeah, I did because like the way they run their pick and rolls now, it's just like with Aiton, like we can kind of play him a little differently, but with KD, we kind of have to play up on it because KD will like pop out and shoot. So it's kind of like makes it way harder for everyone else. And I think him coming
Yeah,
back to play against us was kind of like a good sign for you guys at least of like how you guys want to do things.
for sure.
Um, who's that one? Like I'm gonna say it very separate stereotypically. That white center you guys have on the bench.
Jock Landale.
Yeah, it kind of pissed me off watching him like out rebound Vooch multiple times, and
Yeah,
then we put in Drummond, and then Drummond kind of does okay, but does a better job than Vooch, and it wasn't even like he wasn't even boxing him out. Like Vooch didn't really seem focused on the game, and I can't really be mad at Drummond because he doesn't get to play enough. It's kind of like me in a sense. Like I wasn't as good this year for school because I didn't have enough experience over like just in general. So when you don't really give someone that like playing time experience, especially on a different team, it kind of makes it a little weird for them to go out and do what they need to do.
yeah, for sure.
But just a little bit of like analytics as a team. The Bulls shot 7 for 23 from three, which is 30.4%. Do you want to guess what y'all did?
What?
You guys shot 20 for 47, which is 42.6%. And to put that in perspective, you guys had 60 points off threes. We had 21.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
So yeah, and most of them were open, which makes me mad. But we pretty much got outshot and out hustled against you guys. Um, our defense is like really lazy. And but one thing I do have to say positively about the Bulls this game is that Levine kind of like he tried multiple times to pull us out of a slump, like that half court step or not half court, like right before the half, hit a step back three off one leg. So I thought it was pretty good, but like games can't be won by a single player, and especially against your guys' team now. Like one player cannot do it all against you guys.
yeah. Unless you're Devin Booker before the Christmas injury. But,
Facts. That was crazy. A little bit on the Phoenix side, you guys outscored us by 65 to 45, and you guys were trailing at one point by 4 at half. You guys went from leading by 13 in the first half to trailing by 4. I just said we're gonna pretend I never said that. Um, but they outscored Chicago 34-21 in the third, and you guys got 10 straight in the fourth quarter, which kind of put us away. Um, Campaign gave Phoenix a double-digit lead when he hit a three to make it 88-78 with 3:41 left in the quarter, which kind of, I thought we were doing good at one point, and then we weren't. But, I mean, that's pretty much the game. But I just want to ask you, like, how do you feel about the Kevin Durant trade?
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked me that, and I'm kind of mixed on it. Besides my bias with who got traded,
Yeah.
obviously he's a generational talent. I think any general manager, or sorry, not general manager, any owner, especially an owner just coming in wanting to kind of make his mark on the franchise, would do exactly what Matt did. So I think it was definitely a good trade from a basketball perspective. We lost three and D wings. I remember one time we were just
Yeah.
stacked in that department. Um, but like I said, you
Wasn't one
can't
of them,
really.
like, a depoy candidate?
Yeah, Mikal Bridges came second to Marcus Smart last year.
I didn't think that
So
was right. I think I remember hearing about that.
yeah, we definitely took a hit on defense. But I mean, from what I've seen from Kevin Durant, he's been playing phenomenal defense, blocking shots, steals, all of that. So I think it's a good trade as long as we can stay healthy. That's the
Yeah.
little asterisk up there next to that trade.
Yeah, I feel like what y'all lost on defense, you can now make up on offense. So while defense is
For sure.
like, you guys still took a big hit there, your offense might be able to carry that load a little bit more because,
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's just like you can't leave anybody open
kind of similar
except Chris Paul
situation to how the
occasionally.
Nets were with the offense defense.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think we're horribly defensive either. It
No,
would be
definitely
different
not.
if we were like bottom tier defense, but I think we're right around there in the middle, upper middle area. So
Yeah. They're definitely good enough to go all the way. Then speaking of that, how far do you think this team can go?
obviously, being a Suns fan, okay, I'm gonna say I think we could
No
go all the way.
bias. No bias.
No bias. I still think we could go all the way. You have a big four. How often do you see a big four? You see big three
Hold
pretty
on. Hold on.
often.
Big who's you putting eight in the big four?
Yeah, Aiden is.
Uh, I
I
don't know
am.
about that
I,
one.
I am. Okay. He gets like 15 rebounds a game, averages a double double. He's getting a lot more looks now, as you probably saw in the Bulls game, and
Yeah.
he's getting better every year. That's one big thing. We just need. The only thing about DeAndre Ayton is he's in one game and he's not so much in the next game. He could have a
Yeah.
20 and 15 game, and then he could have a 5 and 3 game. It's happening less often as he gets more consistent, as he plays more years and gets older, which is a good sign. But yeah, I think we can go all the way if we stay healthy. If we stay healthy, there's zero doubt in my mind that we can go all the way to the finals and win it. But that injury is a real, something that could
Yeah, it's a real
happen,
problem.
especially with Chris Paul, and then Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant
Yeah.
is regressing as far as
Injury
injuries go.
prone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's still just as good as he ever was on the court, but he gets injured a little bit more now. And injuries have just been kind of a reoccurring theme with our season so far. So you never know.
Yeah. Um for us it's been, DeMar gets hurt, it's okay. But like the main reason why we didn't really make any trades, which I think is still stupid, was because we were like leaning on Lonzo to come back, and it's not gonna happen this season.
Yeah.
So, and like back what you said about Aiton and has inconsistency, I feel like it's kind of where Vooch is at right now because like some games he'll have like 22 and 15, and there was a game against the Pacers he had like 7 and 5, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very happy about. But yeah, I just feel like we share. I feel like y'all are like the more advanced like team as us, because we technically kind of do have a big four if we're all healthy. Because Lonzo's like a great playmaker. I'm not saying like he's on the same level as Chris Paul's playmaking, but like if we're signing like as like roles, we kind of have that there.
Yeah.
And DeMar's kind of like, I guess, kind of like Booker, but I don't really. Who would Zach be for y'all? Because Zach's like our leading scorer, but I feel like DeMar's more related to Booker in their game.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there's a. I mean, Josh Okogie some games. He goes off
Yeah,
some games, and then he'll just randomly have a 25-point game probably every like 4 games or so. Uh,
yeah,
he's not as good as Zach LaVine is, obviously. That was more of a joke, but yeah, I'm not sure
yeah.
who his equivalent would be.
So yeah, I agree. But and then we have obviously Vooch as like our four. But I feel like if we can kind of work out what y'all worked out, I feel like we could probably be decent. But that's gonna not be anytime soon. And if you guys don't win this year, or make like at least a very deep playoff run, like what needs to happen?
Well, keep building around Booker. I feel like if we don't do something this year with Chris Paul, we're never going to do something with Chris Paul. Because he's obviously kind of regressing this year in the scoring department. At least he still averages like 10 or so assists a game, which is crazy. DeAndre Ayton's still improving, but I think we can, for the most part, run it back next year because you never really see a team that makes a trade mid-season go on and win a championship that year. So I
Yeah,
think
it takes time.
giving them at least another year would probably be fair bet. Maybe going and trying to sign a different point guard in free agency to take some of the load off of Chris Paul, kind of like what Campaign is doing. But I don't know how often Campaign can have those. He shows greatness, flashes of greatness sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's not all the time. So yeah, signing a different point guard,
But who would you
and
be
then
looking
probably
at for that?
I don't know. I honestly let me look up who the free agents would be.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, we need someone too, so this like benefits me as well, trying to figure out who's a free agent who we can hopefully try to pick up.
yeah, I mean Kyrie is. I don't want Kyrie. I didn't want Kyrie. I
I
was
don't want him
crossing my
either.
fingers.
I
Yeah, I
didn't
was
want
crossing my
Russ. I
fingers
didn't
that we
want
would
Russ
not.
either.
No, yeah, me neither. Fred VanVleet. That's one that
Mm,
I know he wants out of Toronto. Um,
I don't know how well he would mesh with y'all because y'all don't need scoring. Scoring's not the issue, and I feel like what you have in Chris Paul is good as long as he can maintain it at a high level. Because when you
yeah,
sacrifice scoring for facilitating and facilitating for defense, then you're gonna need something. You're gonna need somebody.
yeah. I feel like Kyle Lowry is a pretty similar player to Chris Paul, even though they're both kind of in the same age range. So I don't know how effective that would really be. Only the guys I see on here is like Reggie Jackson or Patrick Beverly, people like that for point guard
Yeah,
position. So I don't know. Probably have to wait another year for that one to get a good one.
yeah. I feel like that's kind of our issue with Lonzo. Like we just like I think we just bought Pat Bev's contract or something like that. And while like he's good and I'm glad we have him, we're still missing like that like true point guard role on our team. Like he's like the all right pie chart in 2K. Like that's
Yeah,
all he's got is all he's got is his defense, which helps us out. And he is a good leader, yes, but we still need some facilitation out here because Zach's a scorer, DeMar's a scorer, Vooch just kind of does whatever, and then like Caruso or like our not really I call him a rookie still, but he's not Aodosumu. I don't feel like that's the direction he needs to go because we're trying to force guys to fill Lonzo's spot, but it's not going to work out.
yeah. That I mean, you say that, I think of an example like Lowry marketing. You know, you take him out of a team that tries to fit him in, you know, to an exact role that he's not exactly meant to be. And then you take him out, you put him in the role that he wants to be in, and that's where he can, you know,
Yeah, that's where it
flourish.
starts dealing damage.
Yeah.
So you guys beat the Mavs actually yesterday, 130 to 126, which is good. But I do have a question that kind of raised some concerns to me. With your guys' new team, does beating the Mavs by 4 concern you a little bit?
So I thought about that, and no, not necessarily. An added like little bonus was that it was not a home game for us. Um, but I mean, we're talking about a league where the best team could lose to the worst team any given night. I say that as the Suns have lost to the Rockets multiple times in the past year. Okay. Um, Now, blowouts, I think, are a little bit different. I don't think we should ever get blown out by the worst team if we're,
Yeah.
you know, arguably the best team. Um, but with just such a competitive league, it doesn't ever really cross my mind, or I don't ever really think, oh man, that was too close for comfort, you know, because ultimately the games that really matter are a best of 7 series, and I think the better team is going to
Yeah.
win that, um, minus major injuries to any players.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't. It doesn't exactly concern me, especially because they have Kyrie too, um, and I feel like we with Kevin Durant we haven't really figured out all our options. Uh, and what I mean
Yeah.
by that is I went to his debut in Charlotte, and you know, halfway through the game, I leaned over to my friend and I told him, I was like, I don't know, I'm just getting the feeling like they don't know everything that they could do just yet with all the plays they could run, everything like that. You know, I felt like I'll try and use an analogy of you're a kid on Christmas, you get so many toys, you don't know which one to play with first. You know, so many options.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a really similar situation to that in Phoenix right now. So that also is the reason why I don't really worry about close wins like that.
Yeah, I can see why. Like in the playoffs last year, when everybody was like putting like a ton of emphasis on Booker, you guys kind of leaned on Aiton for a good bit of scoring. And now that you have Kevin Durant to do that instead, which
Mm-hmm.
Aiton's good, don't get me wrong, but everyone like in a room would like unanimously agree that we want KD being
Oh yeah,
the guy to score the ball in situations like that. And I feel like if y'all would have had KD, was it last year? So if you guys would have had KD last season, you guys probably would have went all the way.
for sure.
Just because they can't force all of their energy on Booker because you have someone equally, if not better, to look out for.
Yeah, and that's what we needed for the longest time is we needed to get Booker, like someone besides him, to in the
Yeah.
scoring department, like another true scorer. And Kevin Durant, when there was talks about him over the offseason, I was all for it, because I don't know who else you'd want as a scorer on your team besides one of the greatest of all time
Yeah.
playing right now. And so that was just a perfect situation.
Yeah. And like another thing, like people are kind of, I don't know how do I go about this. Like when people are surprised that KD went to the Suns, I mean, while it is like a shock, yes, that he got traded, but you gotta realize KD wants to he wants to win. So he's gonna go to a
Yeah.
team that can contend and can show they have like that grit. And then you guys are going to the finals and then making like a pretty deep playoff run last year. It makes you guys like a front runner. Obviously, the Celtics is
Mm-hmm.
never going to work out because I feel like what the Celtics already have now, KD doesn't fit in with there, and also they proposed to trade a while ago, and they wanted to give up like a ton of people, which is why I'm really
Yeah.
surprised you guys just got away with what you did.
I mean, yeah, because the Nets obviously they got rid of Kyrie, and right after that, they figured if Kevin Durant wants out, it's just full rebuild mode. Right after that, so they're trying to get their picks back up, and I mean, I think it was because they're right now they can just develop a bunch of their younger people, like Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, McHale, players like that, and other players. They can develop those, and 1-2 years in the future, they could just turn around and trade those for draft capital, excuse me, and that just helps with the overall rebuilding process.
Yeah, I feel like another thing about that is that like it's kind of where the Rockets are right now because they don't really have anybody. I don't know if John Wall's like playing or not. I don't know. I don't follow them. I just know that he
I
got
think he
sent back.
got I think he got bought out, and
Yeah.
if I'm unless I'm mistaken, I don't think he's playing anywhere right now.
The last game I'll be covering is the Bulls lost to the Pacers 125 to 122. Zach had 42 points and DeMar added in 23. And I guess this game was just another example of Zach carrying the team with the help of DeMar, but our bench couldn't pull the weight. I'll get into Vooch later, but we shouldn't be losing like games, especially when someone has 40 points for us and another guy has 20. When Pat Bev was asked about the game, he said we just have to rebound it. That's what it was. We lost it on offensive rebounding. It's very true. He's not lying. The Pacers had 13 offensive rebounds, which is horrible for us and amazing for them. And to make it worse, we led the majority of the first half until the Pacers went on a 17-2 run and gained a lead of 3 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. I'm not mad that they went on a run. I'm just mad we had no retaliation to that run. Before and during every game I played this season, my coach always said there will be 3 runs tonight and we need 2 of them. And his ideally was for us to get the first one, then for the second, and then we would get the third and put the game away. And the Pacers definitely did that against us. We may have gotten the first run a little bit, but they got the last 2, which really hurts, especially when they get 2 consecutive runs. Additionally, their bench outscored ours 57-30, and I'm really surprised this game was as close as it was, even with the fact that Zach had 40. And now I'm going to talk about Nikola Vucevic. Before I go in on him, I want to start with a quote he recently said regarding the Bulls turning around the season into something positive. When asked about this, he said, maybe 30 games ago, but now it's hard to look at it that way. The Bulls are currently 12th in the Eastern Conference, which places us 25th in the league out of 30 teams. I think, especially with this quote, it's safe to say that the team's mentality is in the gutter, if not going down there already. But as our starting center, it partially does start with you, Vooch. Over the last 5 games, Vooch has had 45 rebounds. In our loss to Toronto, he had 5. To say the least, I am disappointed with the post presence Vooch has shown in these last few games. But one big thing to keep in mind while we're pointing fingers is that it's not just one guy's fault. We're in desperate need from backup from our bench. Like the only guys I trust on the bench right now are Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, and occasionally Andre Drummond. But the issue with these guys is they're not scorers. We need someone to put the ball in the basket, and we can't rely on our starting 5 to do that, which we should. But the point I'm trying to make is when teams' benches are outscoring ours by 20, that begins to become a concern because that means our bench can't play defense, and we also can't score. That's one of the biggest issues I have with us is that we're not aggressive on all levels. It's not just our starting 5 that isn't aggressive. It's our bench. And it's not our starting 5's fault we're losing games. It's also our bench. So I don't know what moves need to make, but I do think that this season is over. I mean, we're not in the playoffs right now. I don't think even if we won the rest of these games, we would even be back in it. That's just how I think we are right now. I'll talk more about what moves we need to make next season as the time draws near for our last couple of games. And that wraps it up for today's episode, guys. Thank you for listening. Also, a very special thank you to Bryson Miller for joining me today. I always love to take the opportunity to talk basketball with my friends, and even though this is a Bulls podcast, a good way to do this is talking about like games that we play against each other and kind of get their insight a little bit. Before I wrap this up, I want to give a very special thank you to Bryson Miller for coming on my podcast today. I really like talking to my friends about basketball, and it really does help a lot, especially given that I'm doing a Bulls podcast when our 2 teams play each other, so it kind of brings some relevancy into our conversation. And to wrap this up, thank you for listening to the Winnie City Podcast. I'm your host, Carter, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.